that recognizes the beauty of every spiritual philosophy. It aims at supporting people in their quest for a healthy and prosperous life, a life of significance. Revana Quintana and Osvaldo Mora, leaders of the bilingual ministry Unity Community of Light, are here every Sunday morning to bless you with either an inspiring dialogue and or meditation based on the powerful Unity teachings. Teachings that we are certain will lead you to a space of deep personal transformation. Please be welcome to Encuentro Espiritual English. We are a gentle voice that expresses itself powerfully through hearts consecrated to God and truth, and that by its commitment to educate spiritually, pray with devotion, and gather in family groups, amplify the powerful light of the Christ presence to the collective, all leading to true abundance. We are Unity Community of Light, a bilingual unity ministry that offers an online programming in addition to workshops, retreats, and services in person internationally. Our commitment to the transformation of the collective consciousness is our priority. We are here by divine appointment to fulfill this sacred mission, one that we know can only be accomplished through our own transformation. Revana Quintana and Osvaldo Mora and other leaders are fully present to offer you the powerful unity teachings that will change your life forever. We welcome you from the bottom of our hearts.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unity Community of Light, Encuentro Espiritual English, our spiritual dialogue. I'm humbled to be with you. My name is Tami Johns on this leg of the journey for the quest. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the person next to me, Deb Loban, and I will just have her. I know her to be a very kind, compassionate person. She's in the helping industry. So I just want to take a few moments to have her introduce herself, either something about her spiritual journey or what she's up to in life. Debra, you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Tami. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Debra Loban. As Tami said, I am a licensed therapist and an executive coach. I've been a licensed therapist for more than 20 years. I love the work of therapy. And currently, I am working on a book about self-care, which I hope to have published sometime this year. I'm also working on creating some personal wellness products that people can use to help improve their state of mind and their well-being. So there's a lot going on in my life currently. It's all exciting.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. I can't wait to get access to some of those things. And I know, like I said, just from knowing you, I know they're going to be great.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into it. Last week, we talked about putting God first and how we can do that through prayer and meditation, and so that we know God's will for us. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about personal powerlessness. And I have to admit that when I looked at this chapter, I thought, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I don't really, like powerlessness. I don't really like that word. And then I realized that I'm a control person. So I really want control in my life. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is just for me. And so I want to start with beginning in the book, The Quest, which we are following. They tell a story about a couple that was riding in a car, and a bee flew into their window and flew into their car through the window. And they tried to let it out by rolling the windows down, but it was thrashing all about and just wanted to let the bee out, but it was hitting the windshield and the windows. And so when they got home, what they decided they would do is pull up to a fragrant bush and leave the windows down, hoping that the bee would fly out attracted to the bush. Well, they got up the next morning and the bee was dead, laying on the back seat, probably from doing all of that fighting. And that reminds me of our lives today, where we have a tendency to fight against everything because we want things to be in our control. There are some times where things are outside of our realm of control. And now you may be following this series for a number of reasons. Maybe because you want to move forward on your spiritual path, and you want to do things different. You want to grow in your spiritual journey. Well, this is another one of the ways that you can do that. And that is by sometimes acknowledging that your human resources or your resources on your path are not always within your control. And admitting that we don't have control, it can be a profound time on our spiritual journey. And there are some benefits to doing that. And I just like to go over some of those. First of all, surrender, which we're going to talk a little bit more about next week. But surrendering means you have to surrender to there is something, a higher power, whether you call it the divine, whether you call it God, that is outside of your realm of control that you can surrender to. Next is trust. Letting go. That can be really difficult for people, especially myself, I want to control everything. That can be a really important factor on your spiritual journey. When we do that, it takes a profound sense of humility because we know that there is something greater than ourselves operating out in the universe. And mindfulness, letting go and surrendering and acknowledging your personal powerfulness allows you to live in the moment, and you can release that anxiety and that stress of trying to control both living in the past and trying to control the future. There's inner peace. We talked about reducing anxiety and stress. And then there's personal growth and alignment. Alignment with being in flow of the universe with all that God has to offer for your life. What do you think about that, Deborah?
Well, you said a lot.
I know, exactly.
I mean, I agree. I think that story is very spot on with how a lot of us function in life. The story about the couple and the bee. We do thrash about, even though there's obvious, opportunities to sort of let go and and have life sort of line up better for us. But if it's not something that we've thought of or that aligns with us that we agree with, then we can be really resistant. So I think the funny thing is that we control a lot of things, but not as much as we think. It's kind of funny that we struggle with control when there's so many things that are like not in our control, right? And I think it's also kind of interesting that the moment that we acknowledge that we're not in control is really when we're free, right? Like the bee wasn't free and because it kept thrashing about, but like if it had just sort of let go, right? When you let go is when freedom happens, and also when I think opportunity for change happens. So
Right, exactly. And that really is as powerful. Yeah, that's when freedom happens. A lot of
mhm.
times we are holding on to things thinking we can control it, and we really can't.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of trust and humility, as I talked about earlier. It takes a lot to do that. Yeah, have you had experience in your life or just experience with like your clients or I mean things like that where people are just they're thrashing about and then
Yeah.
what happens?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, in the work of therapy, we are encountering that as a therapist, you encounter that, on a regular basis. People come to therapy and you think that they are acknowledging their powerlessness and so are ready for the work of therapy. Uh, and sometimes that's just not true. So they may be They may be fighting with the therapist. Like, I'm not fighting back. It's just that they're resistant and, not hearing, not, just not open, not ready. And, from my perspective, I give that person space because I think when we're ready is when we're ready. We're not going to be ready before. So, like with this idea of control or personal powerlessness, when we're ready to give that up is when we're going to, and we're not going to do it before. And, sometimes it means that we are going to encounter some suffering until we do. That's been my personal experience, at least.
Right. Yes. And I'll share a little bit about my personal journey on that, not letting go and that suffering piece as well. But you bring up a really good point of when until you're ready, right? And God just kind of watches us. So that's the same on our spiritual path. That God is like, it's kind of like sometimes we can be in therapy. We seem like we're in therapy with God. We're like, okay, well, I'm either ready for this or I'm not ready for
Yeah.
this, or I want to bargain. I want
Yeah.
to bargain and say,
Yeah.
when can I do this?
Yeah. And getting really angry because things aren't working out the way that we think they should. And so we're angry with God when what we really need to do is just let go. But it's hard, like you said, it involves a lot of humility. And I think that's really, really true. I think that's a lot of the reason why we don't let go early enough. I know my personal experience, there's been there countless times but right now, I'm encountering this sort of roadblock with my company, and so I've been thrashing about a bit, like that bee, like trying to find the solution, and it's not coming the way I want. I'm angry. How come you're like standing in my way, God? Why aren't you like bringing this about? And really, and I know my wise mind knows. I just need to let go, and the solution will come. But that's hard because I think you feel like, is it really that easy? Don't I have to work harder to make this happen? It seems like counterintuitive to just like that when I release, that's when I'm going to be free. That doesn't quite seem right, I think sometimes.
I know, because we're used to really being that hard worker. And I mean, that's how kind of how society trains us to be
Yeah,
that hard worker. And
exactly.
then we don't want to let go. But there are so many benefits when we do let go and when we let God. We get that peace of mind that we talked about
Yeah.
that relieves the anxiety and the stress. And we also get that clarity.
Yeah.
We get clarity for what God wants us to do with our decisions and with all of the problems that we're struggling with when we decide we're going to let go. Guidance, being
Yeah.
in prayer and meditation, we get guidance from God or whatever. I use the word God, whatever people want to use, whether it's
Yeah.
higher power, the divine, the universe, whatever people want to use. It's when we get that clarity and then strength and personal growth. We really move on to that next level in our personal growth when we decide we're going to let go and confront our limitations and surrender. I don't know
Mhm.
if that rings true with you or not, or if that resonates
Oh,
with you or not.
absolutely. As you're talking, I'm thinking about you know, a statement from the seven spiritual laws by Deepak Chopra. And
Mhm.
one of the things that he taught, one of the laws is really just letting go of outcomes, detachment, right? And it just seems so weird, like to detach from something that you care about doesn't seem like that will work. It seems like giving up. It seems like maybe wimping out. Uh, and yet, like, I feel like that's the way that the universe is designed, that unless we do that, it doesn't mean that we have to give up on our dreams, but that we admit that we're not trying to control every piece of the journey, right? Every single moment we're just sort of flowing. We're in flow with the universe and not trying to drive it, like we like to. So
I know, right? Exactly. We do like to drive. I know it's funny you say that giving that drive. I'll use that analogy. So whenever I go places with people, it's like, well, I'll go ahead and I'll drive because I want that control of being able to like when I want to leave, I want to be able to leave
exactly,
because I want to
exactly.
be. And as I
Yeah.
was reading this chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, I really am a control person.
Yeah.
I thought I worked a lot on it, but there are things that we just have to acknowledge and we need
Well,
to continue to grow on our journey.
don't you think that we'll be working on that until the end? I just really I don't really think that that's ever going to be resolved for us. I really don't. Not in this human form. I think we're going to struggle with that till the end because it's just yeah, like it makes us feel calm. When we're in control, we feel like we are managing all the elements and that makes us feel safe. To give up that feels unsafe. So it's a lesson. It's a life lesson from my perspective.
It is a life lesson, and I want to share a personal experience that. So when there was a period in my time, a period in my life where I was going through there was a mix up in my benefits, and I didn't get paid for a long period of time, and I thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And my personal bank was not enough to cover my expenses,
Mm,
and it was running thin. And there was a time where people call it couch surfing, where I lost my home, and I was like, okay,
mm,
well, I'm actually being in one of those. I'm a homeless person right now, even though I was staying with a friend, but I didn't have my own personal space. And then when that ran out, there was a period of time where I was like, okay, well, now I'm living in the Midwest. It's really cold. It's the middle of winter. And I had to stay in my car for a period of time. And I thought, oh my gosh, I remember sitting outside in a parking lot in a hotel one night, and I just cried. And I said, God, I don't know. I can't control this. I don't know what else to do. And then I woke up the next day after crying myself to sleep, and I thought, I just have to let go. I have to surrender. And that is, and like I said, we'll talk about that more again next week, but that letting go and letting God, because God cannot work until we let go.
Very true. I have that's a great story. And like I said, I have a number of my own, but one that comes to mind right now is in 2008, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And
Mm,
my children were 11 and 9 at the time. And I'd found my own lump. And so what I was waiting for was after I got the information or the news, that was certainly a period where I was really kind of gripped with some fear. Like, what is this going to be? Do I have this or don't I? When I found out I did, what was kind of intense was like, oh, how bad is this? And I
mm,
remember on the way to the surgeon to find out how bad it was, I remember I just felt this sense of right helplessness, right? Like I can't control this. Whatever it is what it is. And I remember just praying, God, just give me something good. What else can you do with this? But just give me something good. And I went in to meet with the surgeon, and she said, well, I have good news for you. You have breast cancer, but she said, you have white women's breast cancer. She was a white surgeon. She said, you have white women's
okay.
breast cancer. And I said, okay, I didn't know they had their own. What does
Uh,
that mean? And she said, well, white women tend to have a less aggressive and more treatable form of breast cancer. And that's what you have. And, so I was like, yay. I mean, it's kind of weird to be excited, like, I got it, but this is good. But I think to me, that was like, I let go and I just sort of said, hey, do something, God, because I'm not in control of this. And I feel like, you know, that was a blessing. So,
right. And it's letting go. And that's something I just learned. I didn't know that there were that there's a white woman's cancer and a black woman's cancer. I've heard it can be more aggressive and
yeah,
those kinds of
yeah,
things, but yeah, to actually be like, okay, well, yes, I'm happy that it's this one versus the other.
yeah.
And I just wonder sometimes if that was because we let go and we
I
let go,
mean,
God
yeah,
work.
maybe. I think during that whole journey, that was a year of treatment. And that situation taught me to do that multiple times through that whole treatment process. And yeah, I do think when we let go, like there were many other little uh, I'm going to call them beautiful moments along that
Mm,
challenging treatment process. But yeah, it certainly did teach me that that's something I don't really control. I don't know what's going on inside my body, and I can't make myself better. Um, but so letting go was either I'm going to let go or I'm going to be gripped with fear the whole time. Um, I don't know. Sometimes I think life deals us that to teach us how to let go and how to let God intervene for us.
Right. I think we have to get to that place of feeling that personal powerlessness, that there's something
Mhm.
outside of our control, that we can't always control it. And so I go back to that personal powerlessness.
Mhm.
And I think, well, God has to teach us lessons on that journey. And a lot of times, our own perspective, our thoughts, our intellect, our feelings, our emotions get us into places and into situations that make us have to be able to release and let go,
Yeah.
because that is what we have to actually acknowledge, that it's what with outside of our control.
Yeah. And I don't know that I think that's necessarily a bad thing, Tammy, do you?
Okay.
Because
No, I don't think it's a bad thing.
well, I
No.
think how else will we learn to let go in this human form? There's no other way in my mind, except through challenging experiences, because we're not really gonna, for the most part, we're not gonna really just give up the driver's seat, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, as
Right.
you were talking about that metaphor, I thought of myself, like, yeah, I love to drive when I'm going somewhere because I want to feel like not just only, you know, being able to leave when I want, but also getting there, driving how I want, right? I want to get there quickly. And
Right.
so anyway.
I
Yeah.
know exactly. Yeah, because I had a recent experience too where a friend of mine was driving me somewhere and we had to be there at a certain time. I thought, oh my gosh, she's driving a little slow. I want to get there faster. I want to get there faster. And it is. It's like all these little things that pop up in our world where we're like, to your point, it's not a bad thing, but it teaches us that
Mhm.
we have to let go, because
Yeah.
we do want it is on our spiritual path how we have to learn those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true.
Yeah, so this has been a great dialogue. I love the fact that we're talking about personal powerlessness, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and letting go and learning lessons along the spiritual path. Do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share with us on this
Well,
topic, Deb?
yeah, I think the thing that helps me repeatedly is acceptance, right? Like acceptance
Mm.
of this idea that I am powerless in many ways, right? That I don't control everything. To me, that starts with acceptance. If I'm able to just acknowledge that and acknowledge it not as a bad thing, right? That it's a learning thing, a learning opportunity, then it doesn't seem so intense. It doesn't seem, I don't resist it as much when I accept it as something that is necessary, and part of my journey. So,
Yeah, accepting it as it is part of your journey. I like to say it's not good, bad, indifferent. It just is.
yeah.
That's how I like to go through. It's on our journey. So thank you very much for your wonderful thoughts and your perspective and sharing your personal story. I greatly appreciate that. And what I would ask you out there, if you as you're watching, if you have seen anything or heard anything today that resonates with you and you'd like to donate to this ministry so that we can continue, you can go to unitycoml.org and donate. And I would like to close with prayer, if we can, at this moment. Dear God of many names, I acknowledge personal powerlessness to transform my life. I know that I need your help, God. You are the solution. You are the power. You are the way. You are the light on my path. And so it is. Amen, Amen, and Ashe.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
me.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you all next week when we talk about surrender.
Unity COML, Unity Comunidad de Luz, Community of Light. It's a ministry of love, big commitment to help everyone who's ready explore principles of truth, can really bring healing, prosperity, and all the good that God always has in store for each one of us. If you feel truly in your heart that we are serving you and that you feel that you are expanding in every way and would love to give back and make sure that others are benefited just as well, we highly encourage you to donate. Do a love offering based on the love, appreciation, gratitude, and joy that you are receiving from the source to transform your life. Visit us at unitycoml.org and do what is yours to do from that place that knows that there is abundance for all.
As I always say, asking is giving, and that's how we support our ministry, your needs, our help, and everything goes together.
Divine love, through you, through us, blesses and multiplies all that we are, all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.